Hi everyone, it's been a while. You're watching Freedom Machine, and I haven't been doing a video for a very long time at this stage. But fortunately, these things they rarely go bad, so then I don't have any technical videos that I can do on the bike. There is a review that I put on maybe last year, and there is all the stuff I did with the valve train and clutch cover and that kind of stuff. So most of it is done, and this thing just keeps on going, and there is nothing really that goes wrong. So just in order to do a video, I thought that I will do some maintenance work, even though I don't really have a need to do it. And specifically, I'm going to replace the bearings of the wheels this time. So I'm going to show you guys how to change the bearings of the front wheel and the rear wheel. To approach the job, what you need to do is put the bike obviously on the center stand, and I'm going to remove both wheels because I also use this opportunity to change tires, and it's much cheaper and faster to bring the tires into the shop, the wheels into the shop, and get them replaced instead of bringing the entire bike, because then you need to book an appointment and whatnot. So we have to put it on the center stand, but we also have to figure out how to lift it in the front so that we can remove both wheels. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, so this is the setup that I have at the moment to remove both wheels. Obviously, if you just need to change the bearings, you do them one at a time, so it doesn't really, this whole thing here doesn't really matter. I need to get both wheels off at the same time. So as usual, if you don't know what you're doing, don't mess around with this. The bike is 260 kilos, and it's not gonna be fun if you drop it. So one thing that we need is a front stand, and I slightly modify the way it works. So you can see these brackets, they are kind of upside down, and I created this jig here to hold the fork at the bottom. So the reason why I did that is because I need to have access to the axle, obviously. I suggest you loosen up everything before you put it on the front stand, because you need to put some force on it, and as usual it's a bit risky. Since this is lifting then the front a little bit higher than what normally the front stand does, I put it on a plank here, on a piece of timber, to lift the rear wheel. Otherwise the rear wheel will be touching, and we won't be able to remove it. We'll be touching the ground. So this is the setup that I have. Other ways of doing it is, if you have a strong ceiling, which I don't have, but if you are working in a garage, you could lift the bike from the front by attaching the front of the bike to the ceiling, with some pulling it up somehow. If you lift it from here, it's only about 40 kilos or something like that, so it's not like you're lifting the whole weight of the bike. Obviously, again, know what you're doing. Okay, so these are the retaining bolts that clamp down the axle, so you just need to undo these. You don't have to remove them completely, and once you do that, the axle should also come off very easily. You need some tool to do that, because on the EST, this is a 19, it's not very common to have such a big one, so you need to buy one of these, which can be used on many different bikes, or you can just use a standard one, which you should be able to buy in any shop. So just use that. It's already undone, you can see. Also, if you do the same as I did, make sure that there is clearance in the back, otherwise you won't be able to remove your wheel. Few more things to consider. The brake calipers need to come off, so it's two bolts here, because otherwise the wheel will interfere with it. So they need to come off on both sides, and on the other side there is also the ABS sensor that needs to come off. I will show you that in a minute. All my bolts are loose, so before you remove anything, make sure you have cable ties ready, because you will need to attach this somewhere in my case I'm going to attach it to the crash bars. One, they're all loose. Loosen them up on the ground, as I said before. Also, these are all loose already, the axle, so don't let it fall down. Shouldn't, because there is a bit of resistance. Also, in this whole process, never ever go and press the front brake, because this will bring your brake pads together and it will be much harder to put it back on. It's already hard as it is. So take one cable tie, find a place where you want to put it, and you attach it here. And of course I put it the wrong way around, and we attach it here. I use the zip ties that you can undo. Actually, this one is not one of them. You can buy the zip ties that you can undo without having to cut them. It's actually these blue ones, but I'm gonna use them for something else because they're longer. So on this side we're ready. Now we're on the left side of the bike. Here it's a bit more complicated because there are just a little bit, because there are these brackets that are holding the ABS cable. I only see now that they could need replacement as well. They're fairly rusty, so I'm gonna do that at some stage. So again, hold your calipers, pull them out, and then we zip tie it. Here it's a bit tighter because there is this whole bracket holding the fender. Anyway, nicely attached. Then one last thing, this is loose as well, ABS sensor. Be careful with this ones because the ABS sensors are quite delicate. I have actually a protection here, which is an add-on. It's just a little plate. You might not have that. The ABS sensor, then if you jiggle it around a little bit, should be able to remove it. Yeah, comes out, and that's it. It might be hard to remove it, but it will come out at some stage. Now, final part. These are already loose. You just need to loosen them. You don't need to remove them completely. They do clamp down the axle, and this is how this doesn't loosen up over time. So it was already done. It might be a bit hard because there is the weight of the wheel. So if you lift it slightly, it should be easier. And this will all be easier if, obviously, when you put it back, you put some grease. So this is coming out, and the wheel just drops down, but we're holding it. That's not a problem. And now there is some spacer here which might touch. Spacer on the left side, on the right side of the bike. On the other side there is the plate here where the ABS sensor goes, and you need to make sure that it doesn't drop down, so be careful when you pull out the wheel. Put it somewhere, and this is your front wheel that is free, ready for action. You put it aside. Something that I do in this case is to put cable tie through here, and this will make sure that this doesn't spin easy. If it does, the two of them will be able to hold the weight. You can put more than one, and this will help. This is one. And we put another one on this side. This is really, you shouldn't be messing around with this if you're not confident, because it seems like you might think that there is a lot of pressure and these are held in place by the weight of the bike. As I said, if you lift the bike from the crash bars, it's only maybe 30-40 kilos. So here in the front it's even less. You can spin these by hand and you fall and your bike is on the ground. So then one last thing that I do just as a safety precaution is to put one of these bottom of the engine. As I said, if the front collapses, this is not going to take a lot of weight. Nothing will happen to the engine, and this is just an emergency, let's say, feature in case something stupid happens. So coming to the rear, we need to do a few things. While the bike is on the ground, we need to loosen the ABS sensor. We can remove it completely, which I didn't do, but I will do it now. We need to remove the clamp of the brakes here, the rear brake. Don't loosen this clamp here, because first we need to work on this side. Loosen this big one on this side. I will tell you all the numbers later on when I put everything back together, but the axle is very important that you don't clamp it down too much, because it can destroy your bearings if you tighten it down. So it has to be up to specification, which might be 100 Newton meter or so, I don't remember. So I use a brake bar because it can be a little bit corroded or so, can be a bit hard, but there you go, fairly easy. And just get rid of that one. It would be good to replace this one now and then. Yeah, and the washer. Put this aside so it's free on the side. Actually loosen the axle. Again, few spins, you don't have to remove it completely. At the top here, this was already done. We remove this nut and this bolt here that are holding the rear brake caliper. Put them back together and put it there. So this is loose now. The other thing that we need to do is remove the ABS sensor. And I should have done that before loosening the axle, because as you could see it was spinning. Regardless, this came off. I have this protection plate here for the ABS sensor. I don't know if this came as standard or not, I don't remember, but this can be tight, so jiggle it around a little bit and this is free. Alright, plastic hammer, lift the wheel. I put my foot underneath. And then spacer just fell out, remember. Put your caliper safe in place. So on this side you can see that you need to pull it to the right so that you can get the gear out of the shaft there. And once you do that, you can roll back your rear tire. And that's that one removed as well. Couple things. Don't lay it down. Here on this side you have the same plate that you have at the front. Don't let it drop to the ground. And then once you remove that, you can actually lay it down. And on this side you will see this plate here. This plate here is the dampening plate, or how you call it. I should be able to pull it out. So pull it out and you'll see all the plastic dampers. What these do is when you accelerate and decelerate, they are rubberized and they dampen the force on the wheel. In theory you should replace them. This is a service item. They need to replace now and then. To be honest, I don't see many mechanics replacing them unless they are in bad condition. In my case, you can see that they are actually doing really well. So no, I'm not going to replace them. You can see the bearing here. There's another bearing on the other side, and there's a bearing here on this plate that we need to replace as well. Alright, so a few days have passed and these are new tires. Not exactly the ones I ordered, because you know, dealers are never able to do things right, but never mind, here we go. So regarding the bearings now, the wheels are ready for that. The problem is that my bearings are still good. I mean, I don't know how they built a bike, maybe with kryptonite or whatever, I don't know, but we are going to replace them anyway, just for the purpose of this video. I know it doesn't make much sense, but it is what it is. Okay, when you order the bearings, make sure you also order new dust seal. Once you start to mess around with these parts, you will have to replace them. There you go. The part number here is this one, 93306-07208, and this is actually the same that comes at the front. Make sure it fits. Yeah, that's the correct one. That's the same that comes at the front. So at the front there are another two of these. So there are different extractors that you can use, and this one is not ideal for a number of reasons. Well, first of all, it's a cheap one from Amazon. So what you need is, so you put this in, these ones compress into the bearing, so this little lip goes behind the bearing, then you squeeze that guy in, and this pushes out the extractor into the bearing, and you will be able to then push this against the wheel, and the screwing on here, you will be able to then push out your bearing, pull out your bearing. But it's a very stupid design, because this is actually going to put pressure onto the bearing itself, so you won't be able to extract it. It's a strange design. So we're gonna try it out. There is another way to do it which is probably better. It doesn't cost anything, so we'll see how this works. Another thing to consider is that between the two bearings on each side there is a spacer, and this spacer you can actually shift it right and left. You need to be careful when you want to put the axle back in, because this could interfere. It needs to be actually straight. So the thing is that it's touching the bearing on the back, so if I want to slide in my tool here, this lip won't have enough space to go behind the bearing. It will struggle to go behind the bearing because it will press into the spacer. So all in all, cheap extractors don't really work, I guess. I will give it a go, but if it doesn't work, I just go with the easy solution. And yeah, it's better to have good tools, or the tools that are recommended by the manufacturer to do certain jobs. Also, another thing that you need to consider is that this here is part of the ABS sensor. It's full of magnets, and you shouldn't damage this. Also, you shouldn't get close to it with anything that is magnetic, so you need to be very careful with that. So that also means that you shouldn't be heating up this area. What you can try to remove all of it, and then you can heat up the outside of the bearing, which will expand and make it easier. I want to try without doing that. Yeah, kind of something did happen a little bit. I'm not sure if it's gonna be able to grab it properly. I have something like that, which is a fork seal fitting tool. Just gonna try if I can make it work that way. Some weird measure. I don't think this is doing anything at all. Okay, so this didn't work, as you just saw. Absolute failure. So now we go with the unconventional method. Long bar from the other side, hammer the bearing out. So take small hammer. You don't need violence. Stick in the bar from the other side and push the spacer to the side and start hammering a little. Let's see if now I can pull it out. Now that there is no spacer in the back anymore, we can get this in much better, and it's expanding, so we give it another go. So we keep improvising just to use that tool. This one is larger. It's another fork extractor, so it's not pushing against the bearing. You can just hammer it out. This is really not in Freedom Machine style, it's a bit too improvised, but I ordered the wrong tool. I didn't pay attention. I mean, it's if they only thought about the fact that you need a bigger tube to pull out the bearing, that could have been the solution for this. I don't know why they did something so stupid. But anyway, bearing is out. There you go. Just hammer it out, would be easier. So now that's the spacer. It's giving us the problems. If it wasn't for the spacer, it would be easier. When we put the bearings back, we need to make sure that we align this properly. On the other side, the bearing is much bigger, so it's a different part number. You can see it here. So it's 93 306-27 212. On this side also there is no dust cover, because there is the whole plate that goes here with all the other stuff. So I'm going to extract this one with the extractor, just because I don't like the whole hammering business, but I mean, that's how many people actually do it. That's it. Improvised. Oh, we still managed. One piece of kit that you will need, again you can improvise here as well, is a bearing driving kit, and I will have to improvise somehow this time. Unfortunately, I'm really sorry guys, I didn't prepare. So the one I have is going to hit the bearing in the middle. You can see that there's a black cover here that we are going to push against. So, and when we drive in the bearing, we need to actually get it from the edge. So the big one, we are going to have an issue with the big one. With the smaller ones, we're actually going to be perfectly fine. So the kit is good for the small one, but we need to improvise for the big one. So if we take again this tool here, which normally is designed for the seal, the fork, you can see that actually when we close it, we should be able to drive in the bearing without getting stuck. It's just slightly smaller, so we're lucky with this one. Some videos they tell you that you can hammer it in with, let's say if this was the same bearing as this one, I don't want to get the new one dirty. You can just take the new one, put the old one on top, and hammer it in with the old one. But the problem with that is that if the recess for the bearing is deeper than the bearing itself, you're gonna get stuck with the new bearing inside, so you will have to extract it somehow. It's gonna be a messy job, so you don't really want to do that. And on the Super Tenere, they are much deeper in the rim than you could actually fit two bearings in there, so it's not going to be ideal.
So this is the new bearing. We need to kind of get it in there square, and initially you could heat up this area here on this side. It will make it easier to drive in the bearing. Then I use the old bearing to get it in. You need to make sure that you're going in flat, because if you go in sideways, it's going to be a disaster. So the old one is starting to go in. Okay, so I was doing a mistake. I found that it was a bit deep when I started inserting the bearing, so I went to check on the manual, and actually this bearing goes deeper in than what it should, and you actually should be starting on the right side of the bike. You need to push that bearing all the way in, so that's what we do. And since we already have the bearing on the other side, I need to put in the spacer, but you can do that after when you do it correctly. Also remember that this thing needs to be aligned, so we need to align it once we get the bearing in. So this is the new bearing. So you have your bearing driver, this guy. Okay, this is fully in. Spacer can still move around. Now I can finish to push in the bearing on the other side. So again, we make sure that it's straight. One way to align it is to put in the axle. Since I have this special tool here, I can leave actually the axle in. Now, one last thing I want to do is put the seal on this side. You remember on this side there was a seal. You remember the bearing in the front are the same as the one on the right side of the rear. So this is the bearing cover 93106-28043. So here we have the seal. And just push this one in. And it's flush with the metal here. There's another bearing on the back, which is on this plate, which is the one that is the one with all the rubber parts, right? And on this bearing here you can see dust seal going all around. This one is easier because the bearing is actually flush with the outer surface. But here we have another challenge, which is a spacer that goes inside, which we need to push out, and this spacer will be almost flush here at the top once we push it back in. So this needs to come out first. And to dry this one out, what you need is about 24 millimeters. 24 millimeters will get you in there without getting stuck. 25 might be too large. It's actually not hard, comes out very easy. And here we go. This comes out on the other side, comes out quite easy, so you will figure out a way to do that. So then the bearing, I will have to hammer it out. To hammer it out, I use again a driving kit. You can use from the other side, you can use, this one is 36 millimeters. This one, obviously we cannot hammer it to the floor because it's flush, so we need to raise it. Let's raise it. Bearing is out from the other side. This is dust seal, which you can just pull out. And I'm going to clean this part now a little bit. So the bearing for this part is this one. So 93306 00521. And remember that the first thing you need to do is we need to put in that spacer again. We need to slide it in. It's gonna be quite easy. Just clean it a little bit. Use a driver or something, don't hammer on it. Also, when you put this back in, obviously you need to hammer against the inner rim. Fully in. And now we need to put it back in here, spacer facing down. And in this case, remember, it's going to be completely flat with the, so it's an ideal situation because we can use the old bearing to push it back in. Okay, remember to keep it square. When the sound changes, we are there, finished. And now one last part is the seal. Seal is 5JW 25 31 9-00. Okay, so the battery ran out, but I put on the seal. You just slide it over, fit very easy, and then I put moly grease all over it. Now we're ready to assemble the rear wheel again, put it back on the bike. So we put all the rubberized dampers. They just slide over that thing there, like so, and voila. And then this part slides in, right? It's fairly tight, but it can fall out, so be careful with that. And so now this is ready to go back onto the bike. Okay, so remember that on the right side you still have ABS plate, and then there was a spacer that goes in as well. And you could clean all these parts, that would help. So remember, lift and push to the left. That gear needs to go in there. So here we have a better view. You can see how I can spin around the ABS plate because nothing's holding into place. You can see here there is this part here, this edge, and this edge needs to align with the caliper, the brake edge that you can see there, the corner. That corner will hold it in place. One last part that is missing is, you remember that washer that was here? Here it is. So that washer needs to go back, and to do that we slide the rear axle through. Jiggle around everything. Keep pushing it through. There you go. This will come out from the other side, and you have to push it all the way through. And you can see that if you look here, there was a gap, and you might think that there is a washer missing there, but in reality you just have to push this one through like that. Then we need to tension it on the other side with the big bolt that goes there, nut that goes there, and then we fix it here. That's the last step, and that will make sure that everything is aligned in the correct location. And then your ABS goes back in here. Let's find the little screw. In my case with the ABS protector. ABS. I also tell you how strong you need to do the ABS. 7 Newton meter. So if you want to do it, it's 7 Newton meter. That's like pretty much one finger, not more. And then last very important step, not to forget, fix the upper part of the caliper. I do this one by hand as well. And I will tell you how much it should be. So this one is 30 Newton meter. Substantial. 30 Newton meter. I think we're good. Remember earlier when I said that this on this side, this is going to be tightened around 100 Newton meter. Well, for the Super Tenere it's 125. Okay. And also remember that before we didn't have to put anything on the other side to loosen this one. This is because it was clamped down and it was clamped down on the other side. but now we don't know exactly what is the correct position, so we cannot clamp it down. So while we tighten it on this side, we need to hold it on the other side with this 19. We need to hold it in place with the 19 and just rest it against the ground. And now we're ready to process this side. And we are at 125. Now, coming back to this side, we can now clamp this one down properly. And I'm gonna tell you how much this is. I'm just going to do so. This one is going to be 25 Newton meter. If you want to do it, I just do it by hand. Check everything, ABS, wheel is spinning fine. Perfect. Everything is good. The rear is finished. Moving on to the front. The process is actually very similar. First we need to take off that seal. Again, here's the ABS sensor. Don't put anything magnetized against it. Don't hit it. Try not to touch it in general. Let's try to pull out that. Here the gap is, there is no gap pretty much between the spacer and the bearing, so there's no chance I can pull it out with the extractor that I have. There's no way that's gonna work, so I need to hammer it out a little bit. Anyway, let's pull out this side, because now we have a gap. So okay, same as before. That's one out. And by the way, I pulled it out with all the seal, so save myself a bit of time. Same as before, there's a spacer on this side which we can take out, and now we can extract the bearing from the other side, or we could just hammer it out because I'm tired. Just hammer it out from the other side. No need to waste time. There we go. That's that. Same as the right bearing on the rear. Bearings in the front, they are both 93306 07208, and then the seals, they are 93106-28043. one on each side. So on the front we start with the left bearing. How do you know that it's the left side? The ABS is on the left side, so you can see the sensor part here. So we start with this side. Here, new bearing. We use a bearing driver that grabs it from the side, so that's not good. This is perfect, same as the one we used before. This didn't want to go in easy. When the sound changes, we stop. We move on to the other side. Remember, we have to put the spacer back in to keep the spacer straight. We can use the axle here. We will have to adjust it before it touches completely. And we're there. Let's try again. Okay. Then it's going through. Good. Other seal. And the front is also ready. Once ABS plate is aligned, slide in the axle. Okay, 72. It will be 72 Newton meter on this side. Remember to keep this too loose. Okay, it's fully in. Now we set our torque wrench at 72 Newton meter. That's 72 Newton meter. These at the front are at 21 Newton meter. I do them by hand. I accidentally forgot to start the video. Cut the, obviously the brake calipers need to go back on. Cut the zip tie and bring it back on. Bring your calipers back onto your discs. Maybe give your discs a clean with brake cleaner or whatever. And I will let you know now how tight this needs to be. Okay, so brakes, they go at 40 Newton meter. That's 40 Newton meter. Just a bit more complicated because we have the ABS that we need to fit as well. Again, cut the zip tie. Bring the caliper back on. Okay, so I'm really sorry about the noise. It's raining really heavy now. It's the day after. I had to stop because it was too late. I hope you can hear me. We'll try to scream a little bit louder. It's just that there is at the moment there is a storm here in Ireland, and I need to get this bike ready for tomorrow, so I cannot postpone the video. So on this side there is the ABS, which requires a bit of extra attention. So the ABS will go from the outside over this bracket here of the suspension. So then this will be attached here like so, and then we can push in the ABS and fix it in place. Seven Newton meter. It's very little. So then we can start to move the calipers in. This here, this hook on the lower side will go in like that and grab the cable of the ABS. This is required to hold the cable to avoid that the cable will touch the disc, and then the lower bolt goes in. The top, this one goes like so. And this goes in. Newton meter. Newton meter. Sorry, the video wasn't centered properly, but you know what I was doing. Okay. That concludes the replacement of the bearings on the front and the rear. I'm going to close this video really quick because there's too much noise. Anyway, replacement of the bearing in the front and the rear by lifting the bike and replacing also the tires on the front and the rear. So how to get the wheels off both wheels off the bike at the same time. Obviously, if you are replacing the bearings, you don't need to do that. You just do them one at a time. So I hope that this video will be useful to you, and if it is, then please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button as usual. Thank you very much. See you on the next one.